Hi, welcome to the Food Lovers Dietitian. First off, in the brand new series of menu inspiration posts. Now, I'm hoping that these posts will help you find out how to use the Food Lovers Dietitian meal planner that you can download from the blog to create your own meals and snacks from the food that you love. So these are actually some ideas. It's not a food plan that you need to follow, but I'm hoping that it'll help you find and keep a healthy weight and know just how to use the right amounts of the foods that you enjoy using to create lovely meals and snacks that work well with your healthy weight goals. So what I've decided to do was cover 3 meals and 3 snacks in the day. So I've spread out those serves of carbs and protein and vegetables, fruit and dairy. So if you remember, there was a larger carb serve and 3 smaller carb serves, a larger protein and a smaller protein serve, 5 veggie serves, 2 fruit serves, and 2.5 dairy serves. And I've spread those out a little bit. I've divided the fruit serves into halves and the dairy serves into halves and quarters so that I can mix and match over the day. But if you're not a meals and snack person, that might mean that you decide to add some of those snacks to meals. So say for breakfast, with your breakfast cereal, you might have a whole serve of fruit rather than half a serve on the top, or you might use a bit more milk on there. So it's totally up to you. You might swap lunch and dinner around. It just whatever suits you. It's up to you. This is just one way of doing it, and it shows you how you might use that meal planner. So I've tried to include some pro tips, some budget-friendly tips, and some family-friendly tips to make it easy for you to use in all sorts of different ways. So let's have a look at the very first menu inspiration. And today I'm looking at, for breakfast, some porridge. Now, porridge doesn't sound that special or interesting, but I'm sure if you have a look at the picture, you'll agree with me. This porridge looks pretty special. What I've done is I've used the larger carb serve, 1/3 of a cup of oats, and I like to use traditional oats. So they need a little bit of soaking to make them easier to cook. So I usually pour on 1/3 of a cup of boiling water while I go and have a shower, and that softens them and makes them cook quicker. Come back in about 30 minutes and then I'll add half a cup of low-fat milk and cook that in bursts until it's nice and thick and creamy. Now, to be honest, I like mine really smooth and soft. So if I've got a bit more time, I'll add a bit more boiling water and cook it a little bit longer. But when that's ready, I'll add a dollop or a couple of tablespoons of yogurt. I like the fruit flavoured low sugar, low fat yogurt on top, and then I'll garnish it with some fruit. You can see I've used some berries for this post, a pinch of flaked almonds, and some fresh mint to garnish it. So that makes a lovely breakfast. Then for morning, so by then I've used, like I said, a larger carb serve, half a dairy serve of milk, 1/4 of a dairy serve of yogurt, and half a serve of fruit. So then mid-morning, a snack. Over the day, I've tended to use the other half serves of fruit for the snacks, for the morning snack, the afternoon snack, and the evening snack. And I've teamed that up with either 1/4 or half a dairy serve. Now for morning tea, I've used one of my favourites, which is that old-fashioned fruit flavoured flummery that you use using jelly crystals that you dissolve in hot water and then you'd whip up with chilled evaporated skim milk. So I've used the no added sugar diet jelly from Aeroplane, and I've dissolved a packet of that in half a cup of boiling water and then whipped that up with a tin of super cold evaporated skim milk. Now, a budget-friendly tip, if you don't have the evaporated skim milk or a cheaper way of doing it, is just to mix up double-strength skim milk powder. 1/3 of a cup of the powder would mix up to 1.5 cups of double-strength skim milk to use for this. Just make sure that it's really nice and cold. Now, that recipe ends up making 6 of these half dairy serves of flummery, so you can use it for snacks over the next few days or share it around. And then on top of that half serve of dairy, I'll put half a cup of fruit, so that's half a fruit serve. And you can see again, I go for that pinch of almonds and a garnish of fresh mint. Now, one of my pro tips there is I like to use those flaked almonds because you don't need very much. You just need a pinch of those almonds rather than having to use one of your fat serves on 5 grams of nuts, which is actually not very much. So a little pinch of almonds is just a couple of grams that we don't need to really think about. So that is lovely. So we've now also used another half serve of dairy, half serve of fruit, and we're up to lunch. Lunch is a no-fail formula. It's a couple of cups of salad, which is 2 veggie serves, and I've just used what I had on hand, but I do love to use canned baby beets, a bit of roast pumpkin, plenty of lettuce leaves, of soft lettuce leaves, a bit of red onion. Those would be my staple things in a salad, which I serve with a couple of teaspoons, which is a fat serve, of my favourite dressing, and I've linked to the recipe there. So that's easy to make, 4 ingredients, and it is useful. I use that all the time. You'll love that. It's like, it comes out like a caramelized balsamic vinegar. It's really yummy. And with that, I put the smaller protein serve. So that's 40 grams of, here I've used diced chicken, but you could use lean meat, canned fish, smoked fish, whatever you like. And it's good to mix it around. You could even use an egg. And then I put with that a smaller carb serve. I love canned chickpeas, but sometimes I use canned corn kernels or a slice of grainy bread, in which case you might use another fat serve for that on the bread. So at the end of that, a dollop of yogurt on the top too. It just kind of makes it all nice and binds together. So lunch, I've used a couple of vegetable serves, a smaller protein, a smaller carb serve, and a fat serve, maybe a couple of fat serves if you've had bread. Now in the afternoon, because I've only used 1 smaller carb for lunch, if I had a sandwich I would have used 2 for a sandwich, or if I'd had a wrap, but I've only used 1 with the salad. So I like to use the other one for afternoon tea, and rather than just taking a slice of bread and putting, a teaspoon of butter on it and maybe a thin spread of jam, or instead of that you might have a teaspoon of peanut butter, which is easy, but it's not very filling, it's not very interesting. What I like to do with that bread is I like to take the dairy, a quarter of a cup of dairy, a tablespoon and a half of cheesecake cream, and I've linked to that in the post, which is really just blended cottage cheese that I've sweetened to taste. I've got a sweet tooth, so I like to put a bit of artificial sweetener with that and make it quite sweet. But you can also use smooth ricotta cheese, or you can just use low-fat Greek yogurt. You don't have to sweeten it at all because the fruit that you put on top is quite sweet anyway. Just half a serve of fruit. Here I've used half a red wine poached pear. I've linked to the recipe in the blog there too. I love these, and I'll cook quite a few at a time and then freeze them and take them out as I need for snacks or to put with breakfast. So do have a look at that. Again, sprinkling of flaked almonds, a bit of mint, and you've got this gorgeous afternoon tea snack. Then dinner time, I've actually got a really interesting recipe here. It's based on my mean moly or Kerala fish curry that I learned on my last visit to South India from Neetan, who is the chef at the very gorgeous Brunton's Boatyard in Kochi, which I've linked to in my blog as well for the posts that I've done there. And that was a fabulous recipe. But like lots of South Indian recipes, it used quite a few bit of coconut oil and coconut milk. So that would have used up quite a lot of fat serves off the Food Lovers Dietitian meal planner. So actually, I was very excited to find that I could just use a couple of teaspoons of coconut oil to fry off the spices and still get a really nice flavour. So I've added a larger protein serve of fish, 120 grams of raw fish, or if I'm cooking for 4, that'll be half a kilo. And I've also added the onion as well to that, and finished it off with some tomatoes and a small tiny tin of full fat coconut milk. And that's my pro tip. You could use low fat coconut milk, but it doesn't have the flavour. It's better to use that small amount of the full fat coconut milk, I find, to get that really great authentic flavour. And this is a lovely dish that you could actually serve at a dinner party or if you were entertaining. And I serve that with half a cup of boiled cooked basmati rice, and that's a smaller carb serve. Family friendly tip: if you've got larger appetites that you're cooking for, then you can add extra rice with that and serve extra smaller carbs for that. I cook a couple of mini poppadoms in the microwave on high for about a minute, and I also serve that with some kachamba salad, which is diced tomato and cucumber, coriander and some lime juice through that, and some red onion. So a cup of that is a couple of serves of vegetables. And then some raita, some yogurt raita with some, again, cucumber and herbs or onion through it. And I've linked to the post for the recipe for the raita as well. That is really delicious. That's a lovely meal. And so by then, of course, we've used the larger proteins. So we've used both the proteins. We've used all the carbs, the large one for breakfast, small one for morning, afternoon tea, and for lunch. We've used all the fat serves. We've used almost all the fruit serves. But for dessert or for an evening snack, we've still got half a fruit serve and a quarter of a dairy serve to use. And I've used the cheesecake cream, not on the bread this time, but I've used that tablespoon and a half of cheesecake cream or a quarter of a dairy serve. And I've put that with half a cup of fruit or a half fruit serve and served that in a cocktail glass. So that is lovely. That gives it a really special touch. And even though it's not a complicated dessert, it looks pretty special, and again, something that you could serve at a dinner party or if you were entertaining. So that is a lovely recipe and a snack to use as well, that you can use with all sorts of fruits as well. Again, garnish with a pinch of almonds and a little bit of mint, because that always looks so fabulous. So by then we've used 2 fruit serves, we've used 2.5 dairy serves with some milk for tea or coffee, we've used a larger and a smaller protein serve, we've used a larger carb serve and 3 smaller carb serves, we've used quite a lot of vegetable serves, and we've used the 4 fat serves. So that's how I've spread them out over the day, over meals and snacks. And if you go to the post, you'll be able to see how I've progressively worked through those. But look, I'd love to see how you're going to use the Food Lover Dietitian's meal planner. I'd love you to post a photo of a meal that you've made with it and tell us how you've used it on the Facebook page. Please do that and encourage people that do, and let's share some ideas, because these are just my ideas. This is the way that I like to eat, but I'd love to see how you like to eat and how you like to tweak your meals using these ideas. So if you try the Mean Moly, the makeover Kerala fish curry, tell me what you think of that, and try some of the old-fashioned flummeries. Try these things, and please post it on the Facebook page so we can all enjoy your success as well. And I'll see you next time for the number 2 menu inspiration from the Food Lover's Dietitian. I hope you've enjoyed this post.